All right, we're going live, just so you know.
All right.
Let's
Gotta
hope.
be appropriate.
Let's hope things don't explode like they did last week.
That can be inappropriate. Hand tool people are weird, man. I can say that because I'm one of them.
Are you though? Are you?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I did accidentally accidentally rip the plug for the Grizzly planer out of the wall today.
Nice.
It's this like Newton's first law thing. Once you get 900 pounds moving, it doesn't quite stop. And you find out your electrician just attached the box to the wall using those like drywall like anchors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's not actually screwed into a stud.
It's just in a
those,
hole.
like, yeah, it's just those like white plastic like threaded
Oh,
drywall
wow.
anchors, which I guess they're rated for like 70 pounds or whatever. But
Mhm.
you get 900 pounds of Grizzly iron rolling on a short cord. Yeah, just right out of the wall. It's like,
Damn.
great. So now I have a what do you call it? An outlet box on a string,
Dangling.
essentially. Yeah, it's just dangling from the cord coming out of the wall, and drywall dust everywhere as it ripped a huge patch out of the wall. Like, nice. I really should not have power tools. I have no idea how to use them. It's this cord thing that just confuses me.
What's this thing coming out of here?
What do you mean it's attached to something?
What does this go to?
I'm supposed
I
to
was wondering what that did.
take the tool to the wood, and I just can't lift that 900 pounds to put it on top of my bench.
Let's see. Trying to pull some topics in from the voicemail because
Yeah, you're just trying to work and stuff.
I am. You're distracting me.
Like being all professional and making the rest of us look bad.
All right, Purple Heart.
That doesn't need any help looking bad.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I was laughing out loud, literally mad at something you posted on Instagram. JR was like climbing up on something next to the
Oh,
TV.
shit. Yeah.
And Matt's dad moment was, you know you're not supposed to be up there, right? That was it. No getting up, no getting up to like get him down. You know, and JR, you could just see him like, you know, flipping you the virtual bird, like, whatever, Dad, I'm up here. I'm just gonna keep climbing. And you're just like, you're not supposed to be there, right? Like, not
Well,
enough
he
that I'm gonna
knows.
get up and like, you know, stop you or anything.
Well, there's carpet there if you falls. It's fine.
I like it. Yeah, that's good.
You take him down, he goes right back up again. So it's just why bother?
Calendar. Okay, almost ready. Forgot we got to pull in a Brusso ad today.
What?
Oh, weird.
Oh, we did away with those things. Oh,
I asked them if they had anything new, and I didn't get an email back. So I'll just make some stuff up.
we got brass. You can buy brass from us.
They sell brass things that are connected to each other.
They have countersunk holes in them.
That connect things to other things. All right, I think we're ready. You guys ready? I'm ready.
Woohoo.
Let's do a show.
Welcome to Wood Talk for woodworkers by woodworkers. Now, here are three guys who have great personalities: Mark, Matt, and Shannon.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 341 for December 5th, 2016. On today's show, we're talking about shop subfloors, files for restoring saws, basement woodworking, Purple Heart resin, acute angles, and making big projects in small spaces. And today's show, I want to mention very quickly that it is sponsored by Brusso Hardware, our good friends. You guys know that they provide high-quality American-made woodworking hardware for furniture, cabinets, boxes, and more, don't you? Because we've said it a million times. And Wood Talk listeners can use coupon code WOODTALK, WOODTALK, for 10% off your order at Brusso.com. And let me pull up the Patreon people because I forgot to mention those. So if you want to support the show through Patreon, you certainly can and get some cool stuff in return for it, which we appreciate. Let's see. Stephen Misso, Rob Wiskow, Lucian Lasaki, JC Hunt, and Woodshop 101. All those folks went to patreon.com/woodtalk and sent a few bucks our way, and we certainly appreciate that. And if you do that, we'll actually mention your name at the top of the show, just like we did for those folks. Also, I'd like to add David Watson to that list, who used PayPal. You can actually go to the Wood Talk Show homepage there, and on the right-hand side, there are links to do it sort of the old-fashioned way, which is kind of funny to say, but PayPal is the old-fashioned way now. So thank you for that, David. We appreciate it. All right, so let's get into the meat and the potatoes, as they say, and that would be what's on the bench. And for me, I finally got my lights in, so I've got several boxes of very, very nice LED lights that are waiting to be installed. So I'm actually not going to do the work myself. I'm at the point now where like time is money. So the time it would take me to get those things installed as it's getting really, really cold would just be too much. It's 11 feet in the air. I'm not really that great at this kind of thing and getting everything lined up perfectly so that they're not all at different angles looking stupid. So I'm actually getting someone to help me out with that. So hopefully that'll be done within the next week, and I'll at least have good lighting in there. And I am getting ready to start a project. Believe it or not, the shop is definitely nowhere near ready to be used, but I've got those DeWalt FlexVolt tools that I'm going to give a nice thorough workout, and we're going to build an arcade cabinet, like a desktop-style arcade cabinet with our buddy Brian Ibbett over at Coverville. So he's doing all the electronics. Nice. He's got like the Raspberry Pi, the buttons, and all that stuff, and we'll sort of collaborate, oddly enough, with a cover music podcaster on a project to make an arcade cabinet.
Right on. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, should I just like ask him to order double parts and make 2 of them? Because this is absolutely something that I would want. And
what is the like? I know I've seen a bunch of these things where people use emulators and things inside. What's the computer part?
That's it. It's a Raspberry Pi with an emulator installed, and they look just as good. You got to put a monitor in there as well. Not a whole lot to it, frankly. The electronic side is not really that difficult. And I believe it's even an Instructables project. So it's going to be pretty clearly laid out. So the woodworking isn't even going to be that big of a deal to do. So
does it have Donkey Kong?
I'm sure there's a Donkey Kong emulator out there.
Better be.
Yeah.
And Rampage, just because every now and then you just got to tear down some buildings.
Man, I spent so much,
fists.
I can remember so many sleepover parties in grade school where we played Rampage. That game was just so much fun.
The best.
Good stuff.
Gauntlet.
That was good. So much time wasted there too. Early Castlevania.
Warrior is about to die.
Yeah. You know what's great about all that? Matt wasn't even born yet.
Probably wasn't.
And maybe he was just a little baby. All right.
Remember when you used to shoot your own guy with the elf and it'd be ow.
Yeah. Ow. Let's see, Matt. Anything new? Can we just skip it?
Sorry, just totally derailed the conversation there.
Yeah.
I'm still building a sawmill.
Moving on.
Really?
That's about it.
Okay, that's fine. We won't pressure you. Shannon, what's going on?
Finishing up my ice cream scoops. I've done 10 of them. So I've got 2 more to do. And I really am sick of them now. It's the typical Christmas turning thing.
Sure.
I start out with like, oh, this would be a fun new project. And then 3 more. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's awful. But more than anything, I had an incredibly frustrating week when just getting interrupted like time and time again in the shop. And, there's stuff happens. At one point it was kind of nice and I had the garage door open and it's like, I'm asking for like filming interruptions when the door's open because suddenly somebody fires up a lawnmower or something like that. It's okay. Okay, that's fine. But it's the little things like, well, I was saying to you guys before we started recording, I ripped the actual outlet out of the wall that's attached to my Grizzly planer.
Right.
900 pounds of iron starts rolling and I discovered that it was only anchored via drywall screws. And that was like, it didn't really stop anything, but it really just like the OCD kicks in. It's like, I got to fix that. Like I can't just leave that electrical wire like coming out of the wall and hanging there. So then I'm doing that. And then suddenly I start like knocking stuff over because I bumped into the wall and there's a bunch of stuff just kind of leaning against the wall and all starts like cascading down in this domino effect. And it's just one thing after another just kept getting in the way and me feeling like I needed to fix things and I better find a place to hang that or I better fix that or sweep that up. And yeah, it was just kind of a lot of work with very little to show for it. It's probably, I was still in mourning after Friday night and my Colorado Buffaloes getting the crap beat out of them. So I think I was just distracted. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that can be frustrating. It was a long
weekend with very little to show for it.
So I'm in that like perpetual mode these days, just with the house move. We can waste easily like an entire Saturday and Sunday doing nothing but, hang that over here. Let's put that over there. Let's organize those few boxes. I mean, that's the same thing. Like I'm getting, I feel like I'm barely treading water as far as the shop goes. Nothing is getting done.
We actually have the same thing going on in our house, but in the opposite. like get that out of here. Like box that up. Get that.
We don't
stuff
need
out
that.
Of here.
Get it out of here.
And my philosophy is, if I don't care. I'll have like my back turned in the other room, and Heather will say, "Do we need this?" No. She didn't even get the sentence. I don't care what it is. No, we don't need it.
If you have to ask, if are inclined to ask that question, the answer should be no. We don't need it.
Right. There's nothing in this house that I need so badly. Just put it in a box, donate it, throw it out, whatever. I don't care.
Nice.
Get it out of here.
Cool. All right, let's get to what's new, and only a couple of things to share with you here. First of all, we're going to give a congratulations to our friends over at Making It. I guess they had their 100th episode, and they had a big event over in Boston, actually, and I saw some pictures on Facebook. Looked like it was a really good time, full of a bunch of bearded people from most of what I saw.
I started to think I'm glad I'm not there because it would feel very awkward.
You look like a 5-year-old in a group of men.
Seriously, it's the little kid who like can't grow a decent beard. I'd feel like I got to turn in like my maker card or something like that.
Yet you're like 6 inches taller than everybody there, so
yeah,
you got that going for you.
Did you guys see the truck O'Tools that Jimmy DiResta showed up with?
No, I didn't see that.
He was talking about it on the podcast for a while there about how he just has a bunch of extra stuff that he doesn't need anymore, and he was going to just bring it up and just give it away. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, okay, a couple things in the back seat. No, like the bed of the truck was just filled with stuff, tools like drills and saws and things like that, and It's just like, alrighty then.
Like Santa Claus, the maker Santa Claus.
Right? Who needs corporate sponsorship giveaway? Jimmy just went into his basement and just filled up a truck.
A couple extra things here and there. But yeah, that's cool. 100 episodes in the world of podcasting, as we know, is quite an accomplishment. It's not easy doing this stuff week in and week out. So congratulations to those guys on continuing to do a great job with the show. Shen, you want to grab this next one?
Sure. Fine Woodworking Live. Their registration is now open. That's the... I hate to even say this. The fine woodworking version of Woodworking in America.
Yeah, it's their answer to WYA.
Yeah, and you know what? I still have never been, and I really want to go. So I should probably look into this one.
Maybe you'd like to send us all there so we could do a podcast live.
There we go. Is it still up in New York? I haven't even looked it up yet. Still up in... I
don't know. I just saw my email here. It is in... I don't know where this is.
Where is it?
Where is Southbridge? It's in Southbridge.
Southbridge where?
I don't know.
What's Southbridge?
That is kind of funny because you go to the site and it like throws in the Google map. And in typical Google Map,
that's right. It's at the top.
Massachusetts.
It's at the top right of the screen, guys, on the homepage. Southbridge, meh.
Oh, look at that.
So yes, it's in.
Right, shut up.
It's in Massachusetts. Yeah, in bold blue letters at the top right.
But you know what? You know why I don't pay attention to that? Because normally the Fine Woodworking site header is nothing but ads.
That's true.
Like you've got to scroll down for a minute to get past.
But this is the live site. It's different, and they also have Larry David on the homepage, which is nice to see.
Yeah, what is that about?
It's a guy who looks a lot like Larry David.
I was like, wait a minute.
You know what?
I had Nick Offerman before. Now it's.
I'll tell you what. You have Larry David there, and there is nothing stopping me from going, because I'm a big Larry David fan.
Oh, it's just it's real close to Sturbridge, Ma. So if you want to go see super hokey old timey village, there you go, Sturbridge Village.
I think and this is just from hearsay, pictures, and stuff that I've heard from this event, that it is a little bit more instruction intensive than WIA. WIA has definitely gotten the reputation as being more of a social gathering with the instruction in the classes and the show floor. And I think this, at least from what I've seen, I mean, just look at some of the pictures. It's definitely a little bit more closer meeting with these people, and almost didn't they do that at WIA one year where they were going for a little bit more of intensive instruction at the bench type activities? And I feel like
they had stuff down in the marketplace where you could after the presentation, you could then have more one-on-one. Well, do they even have a marketplace? If they do, it's not an official marketplace. It's they have a couple of sponsors that show up.
I think it's probably very small if they do, but I don't know for sure.
Fine Woodworking sponsors the colloquium at Colonial Williamsburg every year. And it's more of an academic type conference than anything else in Williamsburg. So they've got a long history of putting on very kind of scholarly type conferences. And I think that's really the feel that they're going for here.
Oh, and it's it's fine woodworking. They're sort of in on the scale as they sort of are that woodworking academic kind of level. And by the way, here's the reason why they won't have us there to do our show live is because Shop Talk Live will be there. And of course, you'll be able to chat with the guys of Shop Talk Live. Tom,
How
Mike,
fun would
Matt,
it be to
and
do a
Ben.
co-podcast with all of them?
That would be a dream come true. Come on, guys. So that they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be nothing bad that comes out of a 7-person podcast.
I was gonna say that sounds not such a good idea.
That sounds terrible.
7 people in audio, not good.
But yeah, seriously, this is a great event. I would like to go. It's on my list. It's just one of those things that's easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting. The class lineup looks pretty good too.
Sure. Faux show. All right, so let's get into our kickback. It's where you guys give us some opinions and feedback on things that came up in recent shows. First one here is from Larry. He says, Mark, you mentioned that you were going to have your mini split installed in your new shop for $1,200. You need to shop around. That's a very high price. My friend of mine bought a new mini split and had it installed for $800. It's been my experience that prices can be 2 to 4 times higher depending on who you call. Don't take the first bid, save your money for tools. Well, I did do that, Larry. I actually got like 4 bids on that, and they were all ballpark the same. And I went with like the cheapest one, which I guess as I talk about this stuff more later, you'll probably find out why I don't think that was a great idea. So we'll get into that in the future. But, also consider regionally, these things can vary dramatically in terms of what it might be. I don't know where you're from, Larry, but at least the 3 or 4 people that I called, everybody was in the same ballpark of, between $1,000 and $1,500. So, but that is great advice. And you'll notice, Matt, I gave you the longest piece of kickback we have ever had. So start reading.
I apologize to Lex, who submitted this, and everyone who's listening right now, because there's no way I'm going to make it all the way through this giant paragraph without screwing up at least, I would say, 14 times. At least.
Yep, go for it.
Well, people do say that we talk over you a lot, so
good.
We give you the novel to read.
I was real worried.
That's why I did this. It's equal opportunity.
So you do it to spite the listeners as well as me.
It's kind of punishment for everyone, frankly.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, all right. All right, here we go.
Get started.
Here we go. From Lex again. It says, hey guys, listen to a fart in the wind today. That was last week's episode title?
Yeah. I love it. I love that people have to write that.
I'm only a beginning woodworker, but I'm a professional industrial hygienist, including having performed full indoor air quality investigations at commercial wood shops. A few things to note. Wearing a respirator is useless unless you're clean-shaven. OSHA allows mustache or small goatee. I know you can buy a respirator at a lot of stores, but without at least a qualitative fit, there's no guarantee that it's working at all. At least perform a positive and negative pressure test by covering the inlets and inhaling, and then covering the exhalation valve and exhaling. If you get any air during the negative test or the face piece does not collapse from the negative pressure, you may as well not be wearing it because the air takes a path of least resistance and the HEPA cartridge has a lot of resistance. Wow, we're only like 2 paragraphs into this.
Keep going.
Thanks for the encouragement, Mark.
Hey, I'm here for you.
Second, I did a quick bit of research on the particulate monitor Mark mentioned during the reading. The inventor talked it up. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a scam, but I would not trust it, nor would I recommend it to a residential customer. A serious particle counter gets factory calibration every year and zero calibrated between every pull. The inventor mentioned a half-assed way to zero cal the unit, but no serious calibration, and a claim of when a new proprietary calibration, if it can't be independently confirmed because it's proprietary, we're trusting the guy selling it. I get the difference between being professional scientists on this stuff and a hobbyist/homeowner. In this case, it's the difference between a cheap contractor saw and a saw stop cabinet saw. And I'm not saying the counter doesn't work, but at least look up the zero calibration procedure and use it regularly. Or you can rent a professional equipment, Pine Environmental or Rayco Rents to get a handle on your shop. Finally, shop filters. They're only as good as a filter. HEPA or MERV. Offhand, I'd say that if a filter does not require a pre-filter, it's not actually removing the smallest particles. A HEPA without pre-filtration, usually 2-stage, will clog incredibly quickly and the air pressure drop across the filter reduces CFM drastically. I've never seen a shop filter with a magnetic gauge, so I'm not sure. Wait, no, it's not what is that? Maghellenic gauge?
I thought it was magnetic, but you're right. Maybe it's a misspelling or a type of gauge we're not aware of.
I don't know what that is. Whatever. Maghellenic gauge. Oh, and Siri has been listening to everything I've been talking about. When did I say, hey, Siri?
Siri? What? Shut up, lady.
All right. I've never seen a shop filter with this fancy gauge thing. We don't know what it is, and I'm not sure I trust one without it. I also only really trust a filter that was NIOSH or similarly rated.
Magnahelic sounds like something a software company would add.
It is
like now with twice the Magnahelic power.
It's a thing. Okay. It's not trying to scare us, but my professional life revolves around how the modern world is actively trying to kill us. Or how I stopped worrying and learned to love an arcane and distributing knowledge science. I don't expect you guys to read this on the show. Great.
We just did.
I just thought
I should put that at the beginning.
Interesting. Yeah, way to lead into it.
Whoops.
Keep up the good work, and thanks for helping me fill my stupid amount of work travel. And if my brother hadn't moved back to Denver, I'd fit test you with a respirator next time I visited Mark.
I would have taken you up on that. Interesting thing. I like this because it's someone who's deep into the industry who can kind of give a little bit more of they've got a deeper understanding of what's going on and what us as woodworkers and our little worlds. When you look at somebody like Bill Pence, for instance, there's a lot of information on his site, but he is not actually of a background that people should necessarily trust what he says. And I don't mean that he's wrong. I just mean that he is not necessarily qualified in terms of scientific training to give the kind of advice that he gives. But as woodworkers, we rally behind it, because here's a guy who
also happens to be selling a dust collection system.
Yeah. So it does make it a little bit suspect there, but that's you have to develop a certain level of trust. And I think as woodworkers, you read what he says, you go, okay, I kind of trust this guy's research and what he's done. So I find it interesting when there are people who are truly in the industry, trained, who know a lot about this stuff, who can sort of evaluate the misconceptions we might have as woodworkers in terms of things like this, air cleaning. The one thing I'll say about that monitor, I don't ever use that monitor to tell me an actual number. The number itself is completely meaningless. What I'm using it for is relative numbers. So I can see when things go up. I can see when things go down. And I know with the bottom line is there are only so many things we can do in our shops. So if you've done everything you can do and then you look at that number and it's still really high, but a couple of months ago you did that same operation and the number was really low, then you might have a calibration issue. But ultimately what I'm looking for is, okay, I just cut something, that number spikes up to 4,000. How can I get that number down to 100? And once I do that, then I know I've evacuated as much stuff as I can. So I don't really use it to necessarily take, important data for an actual experiment. It's just a relative indicator. So I don't necessarily need it to be as perfect as maybe like a really high-end particulate sort of particle counter like he might use in his work. But I do think it's, for the price, I think it's still pretty valuable, at least to help you establish the right kind of habits. But I've heard that before about the respirators. I think that's great advice. I mean, if you can... Has anybody ever done that? Have you ever had like a proper fit test for respirator? I don't know anyone who has.
But I always do that. I always do that thing where you like plug the filters and just kind of suck in and see if it collapses around your face.
Yep.
Every time I put it on, it's just kind of a little gut check. Is it sealing properly?
Right.
So
kind of makes me double think about this beard of mine that I got going here. Matt, do you ever worry about that?
To be honest, I should probably be more worried about dust and stuff than I am. So
well, the world doesn't, people don't actually know that Matt grows like 0.5 micron filtration hair on his face.
Yeah.
Just naturally. So even if it goes through the beard, it's fine.
It's something I'm going to work on this year a little more. I have a respirator that I wear occasionally, not enough. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. So I think I'm going to try and get a few different ones and just kind of try a few of them out, see which ones I like the best.
Okay.
Just to get something a little more convenient, because for me it's the convenience thing. Like I wear hearing protection all the time because it's convenient to put them on, and there's music playing in them most of the time, so it's kind of conducive to putting them on.
Right.
Respirator, not so much. Like I gotta go find it, put it over my face. I got like a strap around my back, and then I gotta put it over my head, and then my hearing protection can go on. So it's kind of like the most annoying piece of personal protective equipment that you could wear in the shop.
Yep,
So
messes
what
up
you're
your hair
saying
too.
is you want it like cherry flavored or something, or
I want it cherry flavored and strapless.
Hello.
Oh,
That sounds hot.
That sounds hot. Yeah.
All
Of
right.
course, when you talk about a personal respirator fitting, all I can think of is George Costanza. There was definite cupping.
Yeah. All right. I didn't see this last one was thrown in here. You want to get that, Shannon?
Sure. This one comes from Stein. We talked last week about the air cleaners and do they make the air worse before they make them better? Well, apparently, go figure, Matthias Wendel did a test with his homemade machines. And when you turn the machine on, it throws stuff in the air. Then after a while, the air is much cleaner than before. So seems logical.
There you go.
Apparently, there's a video to back it up.
Cool. All right, let's get into our voicemail. So we got quite a few here. Not sure what was in the water, but apparently everyone wanted to contact us, which we love.
People are just too tired to type.
That's what it is. First one here is from Joe.
Hello, Wood Talk folks. This is Joe from the beautiful Lilly, Pennsylvania. Question for you about doing basement woodworking.
What the heck just happened? Hold on.
is that it?
Yeah, just a question.
Yes.
Thanks for
Yes.
thanks for everything,
Should.
guys.
You should do basement woodworking.
All right, here we go.
Working. I mean, as I just said, I do all my work out of my basement, and what I find to have a problem with is during the winter months, it gets really cold, and I can't do any of my finishing with like lacquer finishing and stuff like that outside. So I'm stuck indoors, and I'm wondering if I am stuck with a specific finish, and if it is, what should I use? Because I can't use anything too smelly because it really stinks up the upstairs then. And then the follow-up question, if you don't mind, is what would you guys suggest as far as heat in a basement shop? I get a little leery of some of the home options because I'm afraid dust might get in there and cause a fire. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thanks. Bye.
All right. So cold, looking for a finish, looking for some heat recommendations. And I think if you solve the heat problem, you sort of open the playbook a little bit for your finishes, but it's that basement woodworking thing that's a little bit tricky because you do have a ventilation problem. And any kind of ventilation you do down there is likely to pull back in cold air. So, what do you guys think? Any suggestions at all?
I mean, I've had really good luck with just cheap space heaters. I specifically bought a ceramic one, so there wasn't like a red hot filament sitting there with dust passing over it. But, in a small space, it does not take a really, really powerful heater to heat it up. You may need to go in there 15 minutes early, turn it on to warm the space up. But that thing gets pretty dusty, and I will occasionally go over there and just kind of blow it out. But like, there's no smell coming off it, like something is burning or anything like that. I think the problem you run into is when you get those super powerful heaters that are, kicking off enormous amounts of heat. And really all you got to do is get it above 60, 65 degrees, I think is like the bottom end for most finishes. At least that's what it says on the can. So that's not that hot. I mean, I guess if it's negative 60 outside, there's a bigger delta.
In most
to
climates, it's
overcome
not that hard to do.
Yeah. So, he said he's from Pennsylvania, so he's basically in my neck of the woods. I spent $24 at Home Depot on my space heater, and it does a great job in my 300 square foot shop.
Well, and finish wise, I think, he's going to probably still, no matter what he does, want to use something that's very low VOC. So I think water-based finishes would be a good place to start. Brushing them on is probably, or wiping, or, sort of using those foam brushes. It's probably not a bad idea. They do still have some, chemical off-gassing that you have to be concerned about, but it won't be nearly as bad as if you're trying to put lacquer down or like polyurethane. Could you imagine? And also oil-based finishes. Now, not like the varnishes and things like that. I'm talking just like oil-based finishes is kind of the wrong way to frame that. More like a natural oil. Pure oils are things that don't necessarily, they have an odor for sure, but it isn't necessarily going to be something that could be like dangerous to the household or dangerous combined with a certain type of heater. So that may be something to look into. But I do think, in that basement situation, in a cold situation, you are going to be incredibly limited in the types of finishes that you could apply in that situation.
With the cold thing, presumably his house has a furnace, and he is inside that home So I don't know if his basement is finished or not, but you could just run another duct off your furnace thing that heats your whole house.
Yeah. Now, I
Get
don't
some
know
more
much
heat that
about
way.
HVAC, but do you get don't you have cause to be concerned about things like fumes and dust if you're sort of combining that space, the same HVAC system with your house HVAC system? I don't know how much air sharing there is between zones like that, if that would be a concern.
I don't know, but like right now, obviously we can only speculate how his shop is set up. But let's say it's an unfinished basement and the furnace is literally like right there in the same room with them. So in theory, it's the same exact thing because you're just pushing hot air into that room a little more passively than you would be if you're running a duct directly into that area.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know. Just a thought.
This
I mean,
is
you're already heating your house.
right. Well, this is definitely I think this is a good one for kickback. People who have probably addressed this or found ways around it and to deal with it. Let us know what you think.
Well, I mean, at the heart of his question was the odor, right? So I think if you solve the heat issue, get it to the point where finishes are going to cure properly, and then just buy a low VOC finish, like a water-based finish, that hopefully will solve the problem.
Hopefully.
All
right. I got another question here. This one's from Jason.
Hey guys, this is Jason in Apple Valley, Minnesota again. This time I'm actually calling with a question. So I've got this stack of end grain cutting boards made out of hard maple and purple heart, and just kind of waiting to put finish on them. And so I have them sitting out on my dining room table, waiting for the purple heart wood to get its color back before I apply finish. And after a few days here, what we've noticed is on the end grain of the purple heart, there's resin, streaks of resin starting to come up through, and it makes, ridges on the top of the board. Obviously, I can't sand that because that would just, start the whole purpling process all over again. So I guess the question is, what do you do? I mean, when I go to apply finish over the top of this, is it just going to, I don't know, is it going to be a problem? Or is there something you would do to clean that resin off the board before applying finish? Anyway, as always, love the show. Really appreciate everything you guys do. Thanks much. Bye.
This sounds like really bad news to me. Because if this were a piece of furniture, okay, we might find some way to seal some of that crap in there. But we're talking about cutting boards. This doesn't sound like a good thing in any way. Now, Shannon, I was curious if you know anything about this. I've worked with Purple Heart a lot, and 99% of what I've purchased has been fine. I haven't had any issues with any kind of sap or any kind of juiciness that can happen. But then someone gave me a Purple Heart board at one time, and it was just the sappiest, awful thing. It was unusably sappy, and it would come out of the end grain when fresh cut. It'd come out of the face grain, and I've never seen it before. But this one board was gnarly, and I've gotten emails about that from people who are like, "Hey, how do you guys contend with this type of really resinous wood?" And I'm like, "It's not like that for me, so I've never confronted that." So my question for you, do you know if that is a stage of growth or a stage, depending on when it was cut during the year, that it might be more sappy than another time that he's confronting this?
Well, you're going to run into that with most trees, but tropical trees, there really is no early and late growth. I mean, It's hot and wet all the time,
right?
So it's always growing. It's one of the reasons that exotics have so little sapwood, and they're very kind of homogeneous in structure. But that wood goes through a lot from where it was felled and wherever it's coming from, Africa, Indonesia, South America, whatever. And a lot of times you can get, I don't want to say poor drying, poor unintentional drying, because it sits in a steel container in the bright sun in a port somewhere or on a ship or then in the port stateside, and there's all kinds of stuff that just happens. So depending on how fresh off the boat that particular wood can be, there can be a lot of just shock going on, and stuff is literally just bubbling up to the surface because it's been superheated inside a container. In some instances, depending upon the exporter, it may or may not have been dried before it was put in the container, or it was dried to a higher level, then thrown into a container with a bunch of other stuff. Because Purple Heart gets used a lot, so you are getting full, complete shipping containers of Purple Heart. But there's other species where there's like 6 or 7 different species lumped in there, and 4 or 5 iguanas and some bats and things like that.
Other fun things we shouldn't be
You think
taking
I'm
away.
joking, but you should see some of the stuff that comes out of the containers. It's usually dead, but sometimes it's alive, and it flies out right in your face.
Oh boy.
So there's just all kinds of stuff that happens. So invariably, when we get an exotic that comes in, it comes out of the container and it sits at minimum in our air drying yard for 6 months, just to let whatever funk that was going on in that container kind of subside, and then we usually dry it again. So depending on where it came from, if it came from a broker, maybe none of that was done.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just came off the boat, and you just don't know.
Okay. Well, either way, we're talking about a cutting board, and if you've got something that is seeping like that, I don't even know that there's really much of an option. We've talked about in the past ways that you can kind of warm it up to try to get it to set. I think in furniture, a lot of times you could wipe it down with acetone and put it, some kind of a lacquer finish or shellac on top would probably effectively seal it in so that you could start to build a top coat on top of that. But really with a cutting board, we're not doing that, right? So I don't really hold out too much hope that these things are going to be usable, or at least something you could feel good about giving to other people, that they aren't going to get this stuff on food that's going to be cut on that board. I'd be really concerned about that.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like it would add good extra flavor either.
No, not the good kind of flavor. It's not leaking barbecue sauce, that's for sure.
Try baking it, I guess.
Right, as a last-ditch effort, because...
Throw it in the oven.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst? You were talking about something you might have to scrap anyway, or, come up with some other use for it, so why not try to bake it and see if you can kind of set that stuff so it doesn't leak out. All right, so let's get to the next question. This one's from Steve. He's just looking for some clarification. I believe it was Shannon who said this about last week with panels in our... it was the extra or the weekend show? I don't know. Matching, and you said something about Riffson being a little bit easier.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Steve from Montana. Loved the last weekend show dealing with glue ups and how to hide the lines, but I have a question, and it's probably because I'm a neophyte. Why does Riffson, you talk about Riffson, hide the glue line better than quarter sawn? My understanding is quarter sawn, the end grain would look like it's running almost straight up and down, whereas Riffson somewhere around a 45-degree angle and a little more or less. And so just really confused why Riffson turns out better than quarter saw for hiding glue lines. Love the show. Thanks, guys. Especially love the 2 shows a week. And I love supporting you by Patreon. Bye-bye.
We love that you do that.
And we love you.
Yes.
Patrons!
So is that, did you say that, Shannon?
Yeah.
Explain yourself, sir.
And absolutely. If you think about it, Riffson is, you're going to get a much cleaner straight grain line. Whereas the minute you go to quarter sawn, your medullary ray starts to show up a lot more. In certain species, it may not be a big deal, but even in things like maple or cherry, where the medullary rays are really small, you get that kind of speckled look on the surface that looks really cool, but it also adds another variable to that glue line. When you go to Riffson and you lean those grain lines over just a little bit to 60 to 45 degrees, now you're just getting straight lines, and you're not getting that speckled medullary ray. Now take a species like white oak or red oak with just enormous red medullary rays, and look at the difference between a Riffson white oak board, beautiful straight grain, nice and clean, nothing between those lines. Go to 90 degrees on those growth rings, and you've got, blah, it's just stuff just all over the
wide
surface.
open, fat cut veins.
Right, and that becomes something that now you've got to find a match across a glue line that can be. It's the same. You've got figure. It's like trying to match a curly quilted figure across a glue line. It's a totally different look.
Yeah.
So, shoot, I just forgot his name. Steve. So Steve, what I would say is go get a quarter sawn board and go get a Riffson board, hold them up to one another, and it will become obvious very quickly why Rift makes a better glue line, I think.
Well, and in some cases, it won't be that big of a difference if the medullary rays are not quite so obvious as they are in something like quarter sawn white oak. But look at the prices, too. If you're doing this to hide the face, you may be better off with Riffson or quarter sawn. I would imagine most of the time the quarter sawn is going to be more expensive. So if the Riffson does a better job, if it happens to be cheaper, then go that route versus the quarter sawn. But I don't know. I guess it depends on the pricing.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for the
I'm
support.
taking a drink right now, Mark.
That's fine. Fine. Take a drink. Let's go to Michael's question about acute angles.
Hey, Mark, Matt, and Shannon. This is Michael from Cleveland calling, and I'm just looking for some advice on how the best way to cut acute angles. I've got a project I'm working on, and I need to cut 57-degree angles, beyond what the miter set can help me with, and settings on my miter saw. So, looking for some help. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, what do you guys think? I got no advice. I don't do angles very often.
I think this is a kind of a common question amongst new woodworkers because they see the miter gauge and it goes to 45 degrees. And you think, well, what happens if I've got to count 52 degrees or 60 degrees? And what you have to remember is that it only goes to 45 degrees because when it stands upright, it's at 90 degrees. So now you're subtracting. If you need, what did you say, 52 degrees?
57, I think.
57.
Whatever. I don't know. There's some math there.
Yeah.
We'll just say 50 degrees. Subtract 50 from 90 and you get 40. And you can set your miter gauge at 40 degrees, but then you have to change the orientation of your workpiece. You guys follow me there?
Oh, I'm with you.
Oh yeah.
And
you're,
it's
like, on the
something that,
end.
well, and it's, I can understand why people get confused about this because, well, it only goes to 45 degrees. Well, yes, but there's like 180 degrees from one side of the blade to the other. So if you tilt the blade either, one way or the other, it's going to go off of 90. So as you begin to tilt it to the left, 90, 89, et cetera, and technically if the blade were to tilt the other way, it would go 91, 92, 93, but the blade doesn't tilt the other way. But hopefully that gives you some idea that by changing the orientation of your workpiece in the miter gauge, you can still get that 57 degree angle, whatever it is.
Yeah, it just,
More
I think
often than
sometimes...
not, Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say it can get kind of confusing because a lot of times to get these things, you're doing multiple cuts or you're doing some kind of a frame. So you'll need to do the equivalent cut on a different workpiece. And now the workpiece has to be held a different way or on a different side of the blade or something. So
Right.
Getting the strategy there, even if you could hit that angle, the bigger picture strategy that you need to employ to get good results on not just one, but multiple workpieces, can be a little bit daunting.
Right. What I highly recommend is get a bevel gauge, set your angle on the bevel gauge, and then transfer that line to like the end grain of your workpiece so that you have a physical visual cue of what that angle, and make sure you put an X on the waist side. Just trust me on
Just
that
to
one.
be safe.
And now you've got a visual representation. So then you can take it to your table saw or whatever bandsaw, and you can kind of, okay, well, it won't tilt that far. So what happens if I tilt the workpiece up on its edge? Well, is that going to be dangerous? Not dangerous? Can I hold it in such a way? That way you've at least got something visual that you can line up with the blade and figure out how do I make that 53.785 degree cut.
Right. Cool. All right, let's get into the next one. This is our last question, and it's from our buddy AJ. Where the heck is it? There it is, hiding behind Shannon.
Hey guys, it's AJ from New England Woodworking Studio. Now that I am a monthly patron, I don't feel bad about leaving you these voicemails anymore, so great. And anybody who is not a monthly patron, you should definitely do it. It's only a couple bucks a month and you get some really cool extras, so definitely go for it. My question for this episode is that table that we talked about last time. It's pretty much doing this large table in my shop that doesn't have a lot of open space. It's not a tiny shop, but there's a lot of machines in it, and I don't have, room for an 80 by 36-inch table to fit, anywhere except for on top of my bench. So I'm looking for tips or advice on doing this large table or any large project in a shop that has a lot of stuff in it and doesn't have a lot of open floor space to put this, or doesn't have a big assembly table. I know, a little open-ended. I'm sorry. sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not that sorry. I'm still going to ask. So thanks. Any tips I can get would be amazing. Thank you very much. And as always, I love the show, and I look forward to hearing my wonderful voice on it once again. Have a wonderful day.
So here's my strategy with AJ. I think from now on, we'll just play his voicemail and just not answer it. We'll just play it and then let it hang in the air and move on to the next thing. You think that'll work? He's right. He's helping us out with Patreon, and we should at least play his voicemail, but we don't have to answer it. So again, the very general sort of thing, any kind of strategies you can employ, and I'm not really a good person to answer this. You guys are probably both much better suited to answer how you deal with this kind of situation. So just
building an aircraft carrier, and I ran out of room in my shop.
King size bed, something like that, or a big, Queen Anne, something or other thingy bobby that you're going to be making mad. These are challenges you guys have to confront. Any very quick, brief tips for AJ?
Do you want to go first? Shannon?
Go for it, Matt.
Okay. Pre-finishing, that's a good one. I like that one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Your pieces are smaller, a little more manageable, so you can pre-finish everything before you do your final assembly, and you don't have to worry about trying to finish this giant thing, because once you assemble those pieces, they get a lot bigger. The other thing you could try is...
Wait, what?
I know.
1 + 1 = 2?
Now.
Like, first we take boards and make them smaller, and then we make them bigger again. It's like...
What is the point?
I haven't gotten to
it's
that.
A vicious
skill
cycle
level yet in my woodworking. I can only make things smaller.
The other thing you can do is find a different finishing space. So you bring it in your house if you want to do that whole thing, like we just talked about doing in your basement or something. If you have a space like that, or like I did, I finished that farmhouse table outside. Wouldn't recommend that. Kind of a pain in the butt. And then the last thing I could say is like try and rearrange things a little bit so you get some clearance or some space, like even up in the air. So if you could have this, it's a table he's doing, right? A table. Anyway, if you're doing a big table, if you can get it like, I don't know, the legs like 3 or 4 feet off the ground, so it's suspended in the air above things that might be beneath it, that could be another way to do it. But overall, if you're going to be finishing something that big in your shop, you're going to be looking forward to getting the thing finished out of your shop, because it's going to be pretty cramped and kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think the very first point you made is the key one, because the bigger the project, probably it breaks down, because then how are you going to get it through doors and like physically lift it?
Mm-hmm.
The king size bed example is a perfect one, because you can't fit a king size bed through most doors. They're meant to knock down into constituent parts, if not only for the fact that maybe you won't fit through the door, but just so that it's a little bit lighter. Even if it's a platform bed, the headboard usually separates from the platform, or there'll be some sort of plinth or something that it sits on that separates. Even things like tall bookcases or something like that, or period pieces, they're usually chest on chest type things. One sits on top of the other. Just because it ends up being so ungodly heavy, no one can move it anyway. So already your kind of construction is broken into components that can be pre-finished individually. I ran into that with the queen size bed that I made in my little shop, and the only way I could do it was I went vertically by stacking stuff so I could have different rails, but it was also it just took longer, frankly, because I only had so much room. I could finish the headboard, but I had no room for the rails. So I just finished the headboard separately. And it was a pain in the butt, because I had to go through the whole process, and then I had to go through the process on my rails because there just wasn't any other place to put them.
Cool.
Just suck it up, in other words, AJ, and deal with it.
You figure it out. Where there's a will, there's a way, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so if you want to leave us a voicemail on Skype, you can do that. The phone number is 623-242-5180, or you can just use our name there. It's Wood Talk Online. And now we're going to get into our emails, and we cut it down to just 2 today since we had so many voicemails. First one here is from Dane. He says, I'm moving into a new house and have a similar flooring situation to what Mark is facing. Namely, the basement is wood framed with a single sheet of 3/4-inch subfloor. Is this strong enough to support the tools without sagging, or should I lay down another layer of 3/4-inch subfloor? Should I use an adhesive, such as green glue acoustic sealant, to help dampen down the sound? is plywood rugged enough to not get destroyed by tools, or do I need some sort of top coat polyurethane? So a couple questions there. This is something that I cannot say I'm like really, really well versed in, but it is something that I'm currently looking into. So it's on my mind. So very quickly, a lot of the support, in my opinion, is going to come from what's below that piece of ply. If it's every 16 inches, probably not that big of a deal. If it's, they went like 24-inch spacing or something, you're probably going to have some issues there. So that is the real foundation for how sturdy this floor is going to be. Either way, I would put a second layer on there, because I've talked to a few friends of mine who have done things as simple as a layer of foam on concrete, then follow that with a layer of like tongue and groove OSB, and then a second layer of tongue and groove OSB on top of that, and make a floating floor out of that. And that can be incredibly sturdy. And that second sheet of plywood, I do think, is kind of important to really making the whole thing a little bit more sturdy. You are going to have some pretty heavy tools on there. And I'd hate to, again, if you don't know exactly what's below that, you definitely want to do this. And I would probably recommend it either way, even if you don't know what's below it. That second layer, I think, is going to be pretty critical. As far as the adhesive, I don't know that you need to necessarily go with an acoustic sealant, because a lot of times when it comes to things like soundproofing and acoustic issues like that, there are things you might not be considering that may defeat what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to, let's say, make a wall soundproof, or I did a lot of like research on this stuff for home theater, but if that wall is physically connected to the framing that's behind it, vibrations are going to transfer through, and it doesn't really matter what you do. See, there are ways to sort of suspend it so that there is a gap between things, and that allows that vibration to sort of dissipate before it transfers right through. So again, look into it, but I just think if the vibrations are going right through this stuff into the floor, I'm not sure how much that acoustic sealant layer is going to improve things for you there. There might be other things you can do that'll give you a bigger bang for the buck. Let's see. Plywood, rugged enough not to get destroyed by tools. Yeah, and I think if you do have that double layer, I do think it's going to be strong enough not to get destroyed. Top coat, I think it's probably a good idea just for the sake of helping to resist stains and giving you something that's, kind of easy to sweep up a little bit. But I don't think that poly is really going to give you any kind of serious level of protection from the tools. Like if you drop a chisel or you roll a 500-pound tool over the surface, it's just, it's going to look like crap anyway. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that. I probably would buy, like a couple gallons of a cheap floor polyurethane mat, and I would throw it down there and probably not be too careful with it, because the dust that stays on this, like in the material, is going to help it not be so slippery. Because if you build up a very thick film of a top coat on that floor, now you've got a slip and, trip sort of hazard there that you want to avoid too.
Just ask my dog, who went head first down the stairs last night when he couldn't take a corner too fast.
Yeah.
He slipped right off the edge and went down the stairs.
Yeah.
And I pointed and laughed for an hour.
Stupid dog.
But, I think also the second layer of flooring could be beneficial for that purpose. Like if you screw stuff up, it's kind of like when you put that extra layer of like hardboard over something, because I can always replace it later.
Yeah,
you never do.
Layer. Right.
Yeah, you never do. But
that is very true.
For that matter, I would stay away from adhesive for that purpose. Because if you wanted to swap out a panel, just undo some screws and put a new panel down because you dropped your saw stop on it and it cracked it or something like that.
Yeah.
Why lifting your saw stop, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
Working out, dude.
Yeah,
pumping iron, baby. That's how we woodworkers stay so good looking. Okay. Well, that's about it. So, Shannon, you want to do yours?
Sure. We got a quick one here from Wilson on our Patreon page. He says, I'm looking to restore some older vintage hand saws and panel saws. Which saw files would I need to get started? Thank you. First of all, Wilson, thank you for drawing a distinction between hand saws and panel saws. You get a gold star today. We're not calling them all panel saws. Appreciate that.
Don't be so condescending.
I know. I'm trying to be. I highly recommend just going to Lee Valley and buying their saw sharpening file kit. There is all kinds of ink and turf wars spilled over the types of saw files. I don't actually know which one Lee Valley is using anymore, because the ones that apparently that I have when I bought it like a year ago are not the ones they stock now. But the key is you buy that kit. Hold on, I have the page up. It is 6-piece file set with the tool roll is $41. For $41, you have all the files you need to basically restore any saw you're going to run across. Because I think one of the biggest things that's confusing for people is, well, do I use the 6-inch slim, the 6-inch double extra slim? Should I use the 7-inch slim? I don't know. You use the one that fits the sawtooth, and you hold the file up to it. And what you want is the saw file to be slightly more than twice the height of your tooth. So set it in the gullet, and the top of that tooth should come just below the center line of that file. And that's the file you use. It's maybe an oversimplification, but when you're just getting started, that's what you want, is oversimplification. So instead of going and buying and guessing exactly what sizes you need and buying them one at a time, just spend the $41. You get all the saw files you need and a handy dandy little canvas tool roll and a mill file to joint your files. Best $41 you'll spend.
Nice. That was my nickname in college.
Best $41 you'll ever spend.
Also, yes, that's a good one. Thank you. That almost outdoes mine. Jeez. Nicely done. No, 7-inch slim.
Nice.
All right. So on that note, we also have an email extra portion of the show that we're going to do as soon as we finish up here. And shoot, I got the old topic in there. What is our topic? Oh, we're going to go off topic a little bit. And, holidays are here upon us, and Christmas time is coming.
For $41.
Yes, exactly. And we did have a question about things that we do as far as like holiday traditions and stuff like that. So we thought that would be fun for a nice little email extra. And if you want to get those email extras, you can just go to patreon.com/woodtalk and sign up for the $4 Patreon level, and you will get those piped out to you every week after the main show. And we post both the regular and the email extra there, and you can get it all in one RSS feed, which is pretty darn cool. So let's see, other ways you could support us besides Patreon. You can go get a Wood Talk t-shirt at twwstore.com. You could go to woodtalkshow.com. I mentioned this earlier because we had a donor through PayPal. You could find those links if you just want to make a quick one-time contribution to help us out. We appreciate it. You could leave us a review in the iTunes store. Click on ratings and reviews after you look us up and give us a 5-star rating. 4 is acceptable. 3, don't bother. We just we don't like those. But yeah, you could leave one there and we'll probably read it at some point on the show. And I will not be reading those today. So Shannon, how about you give them the contact info and we'll get out of here.
Sure. If you want to tell us how you spend your $41.50, you can do that on Skype. The username is Wood Talk Online, or you could call us at 623-242-5180. You could type something out on the fancy contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or you can go to our website at woodtalkshow.com and just leave a comment on this episode and tell us how you spent your $41 on your favorite holiday tradition. No, that's the next show.
Good job.
So yeah, and don't forget, Mark can be found at thewoodwhisperer.com, Matt at mattcremona.com, and me, your lovely end of show cut up goofball, cornball, whatever, renaissancewoodworker.com.
Nice. You know where you can't find me? On my Offcuts channel on YouTube. Tune into the weekend show.
You've been content ID'd by yourself.
Yeah, tune into the weekend show and you'll find out a little bit more about that. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Oh, man. Just thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, guess where you can't find me, you a-holes? Not the
That
audience.
lasted a while, huh?
YouTube. Yeah.
It was interesting because I just finished listening to a Making It episode where Jimmy just got set up for content ID, and he was like having fun tagging and shutting people down because I guess he's got a real problem.
Yeah.
So wait,
You've got a
when
million
was this?
subscribers. What's that?
Did he just get set up for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just saying that so they can see who's using his videos on their channels.
But
or
why?
whatever.
But why
Like
did?
while they're recording, like he found like 4 channels that had like stolen 25 of his videos apiece.
Oh, so like an automatic sort of proactive search tool is what he's got. Okay, because I know there's also
he's on the other side of things that we normally are on.
Gotcha. Okay, because I know there's another side of it where I don't exactly know anymore when and how they give you this, but there is a point where if you find a video and you flag it, it's taken down immediately. And I don't think people at the lower subscriber number get that privilege to necessarily do that, but I'm not sure at what point you do get that privilege. I thought that's what you were talking about, and I was going to be like, why didn't he already have
he
that? He
actually has a separate admin panel. Like he had to go through a massive contract signing and all this.
Yeah, so this is pretty hardcore what he's got.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt they would give that to me with my measly subscriber numbers, but Jimmy I think is like 900,000.
I was going to say once you start approaching a million, they're going to treat you more like a partner and less like a dog.
As far as the takedown thing, I just took one down the other day, and it took probably longer to fill out the form than it did for the video to disappear.
Yeah,
so I don't think that number is very high.
That part of it I've been very happy with. That's cool that they're quick to do that, but they've got some serious issues outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually getting proactive, like in his Content ID inbox, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
These things have your, Content ID associated with them.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It's the same thing that Universal and like all those big companies
big
are
time
using.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, let's get into our extra here. After the extra, I'm gonna go get more water. Extra will be quick.
Should be.
I don't know what I'm gonna say to this one.
My holiday traditions are bah humbug. What was that bing noise that just happened?
I don't know. I heard it too. It's probably mine.
Sounded like the elevator was arriving.
Bing! Third floor. Menswear.
Ba-ding.
All right. Here we go. All right. It's the email extra. It's going to be a good one. And it's a little bit off topic. Suck it up. It's from
Suck it up.
It's from
Just deal with it.
from a patron, Matt Anglem, and he's got a good question here that we thought would be fun. What is your favorite holiday tradition? And making last-minute gifts for people does not count. And I gotta tell you what, I gave up the whole making gifts for people in the shop a long time ago. Like, I'm not good at it. I don't like batching things out. And I guess maybe some year I might have a particular project that happens to fall around that time that I'll go, hey, let me make 3 or 4 of these and then give them out. But I am like really bad at doing what Shannon's doing with like the ice cream scoop, and Matt batching out those bandsaw mills every week. He must be, because it's the only reason he'd be doing it for 6 months. So...
Oh,
I could just imagine Lindsay coming home one night and there's like 7 bandsaw mills in the backyard. What did you do?